Um, I've been asked to put together a presentation on our subject today for mid-year analysis for fundraising success. Now, this is actually a subject that fortunately, I've had to deal with before, because when I've worked at previous locations, I've been asked, okay, are we going to make our annual goal? If we're not, forecast to make our annual goal, what do we need to do to be able to do that? How can we maximize our return for the rest of the year? Now, I know that some of you are on a fiscal year which begins on July 1st, which is common in educational institutions, and some of you are on a different schedule. A lot of people outside of education start their fiscal year on January 1st. I know there's some that start on April 1st or May 1st. But I hope that this information will be able to be helpful no matter when your fiscal year starts. And I'm also going to say two things before I start. The first is that, as you may be aware, Cloudflare has been having problems today. And although Zoom is up now, we may have some issues. So just in case everything shuts down, just a word of warning. The second is this is going to be heavy on Power BI, which is a tool that Marianne and I have really come to enjoy using over the last couple of years. And I'm hoping that what I can show you is something you can replicate in your own office. And I should mention that I'm using the free version of Power BI, so you'll be able to do anything that I'm showing you here with the free version. And thirdly, this is my cat Millie, who loves to interrupt. So just a word of warning on that. Okay, Millie. So the first thing that I started when I was asked to do some work for maximizing the last 2 quarters of our yearly return, was to spot some opportunities that we had. So, for example, what could we do to improve what we're already doing? How could we build something on that? And what challenges were we going to face? And as you'll see with the data I have, sometimes those challenges are that the best parts of our fundraising year might have already passed. And if that's the case, how can we rebuild those previous opportunities? And secondly, what data did we need to be able to make those decisions? How can we pull information together? Well, at the time, I didn't have Power BI. I was building all of this in Excel. But I have to say that Power BI, and those of you who know me know that I'm kind of an Excel acolyte. And I'm actually quite kind of impressed by what Power BI can actually do for pulling this data together. So the first thing I did when I put this together was I created a year-on-year report. And this is something that, and let me share this screen. This is something that I only found out that I was doing this a couple of days ago. So all of this stuff can be put together very quickly. It took me the first day just to clean up the data and anonymize it. And all of this was put together yesterday. So this is something that actually can be done in a very short amount of time. So the first thing I'm going to show you is I did a year-on-year giving visualization. So if you're using Power BI, what you'll want to do is pull your gifts into Power BI using Get Data Excel workbook, and choosing under gift date the year hierarchy. And then we can build just a simple line chart with the x-axis being year of giving and the y-axis being the sum of the gift amount. As you can see, this institution had a very good year, unlike most of us in 2020. They were in the middle of a campaign. So what we're seeing here, obviously, is that, wow, now that we're not in the campaign, we're kind of going back down to the baseline. So what are our expectations for this year? Since we're not in a campaign, we're not really looking to match what we did in 2020. But we do want to improve this downward trend. So that kind of gives us a goal to shoot for, looking at the year-on-year giving. Now that we know where we want to try and go, the next thing we want to see is where we usually are at this point in the year. So the next slide, the next visualization I'm going to show you is a list under the tables of Power BI. Right now, what you're seeing is over the last 10 years of this institution, not including the last year, because I don't want to see what we're doing this year yet. This is how much we received over the last 10 years, every day of the year, which is a little much to see. But one thing you can see is as we get down into this part of the year, we're starting to get a little more money. We had a huge gift on November 12th of one year that kind of bumped up the totals quite a bit. But what we can do with this, we've pulled from the date hierarchy the month and the day. If I remove the day, then we can really see where our money comes in during an average year. November and December are the 2 months where we actually got more than $1 billion total in those 10 years. So what we're looking at here is these are our 2 best months of giving. And if we want to maximize our totals, we really need to work hard for these 2 months. What we can also see here is that our giving is going to really decline after January. So can we turn that around? Well, I should say it will really decline. We don't want it to decline. We want to be able to maximize some opportunities in these last 5 months of the fiscal year. The next thing we want to do is we want to try and look at where some of those opportunities to raise money might be. And one of the things, and by the way, if you have a question, just leave it in chat. Everyone's happy to see Millie. I'm usually happy to see Millie unless she knocks something out. Oh yes, and as Ruthie has mentioned, Marianne and I put together a training session on Power BI. It's a class you can purchase from the Stopel website. And also I offer coaching on Power BI as well. So if you're interested in some of the techniques I'm going to show you and want more information, just contact us. So the next thing we want to take a look at here is who has given in the past but hasn't given yet this fiscal year. This is something that we call in the industry lie months. And this is important because especially if people have been giving year on year for a while, and yet they haven't given this year, especially if they gave they tend to give in the earlier months of the fiscal year, but they didn't this year. So maybe we missed them. Maybe they were expecting a personal call and didn't get one. So the next visualization I'm going to show you is what I call in Power BI the LIBUNT list. What I've done here is I've put together giving for 2023, 2024, which was the previous year. I took everything out of this fiscal year, so we're counting 2024, 2025 as this fiscal year, and I've removed all the gifts after November 18th of that year. So this is as if we're talking about today, November 18th, but these are actually last year's numbers. So what we're doing here is we're looking at who gave in 2023, 2024, but not 2024, 2025. And what I've also done here is, so in order to do that, what we simply have to put in as filters is giving in 2023, 2024 was greater than 0, but giving in 2024, 2025 has been 0 so far, up to November 18th. So what I've pulled in are the ID and the latest gift date for that person. That's obviously the gift they made in 2023, 2024. And we can check that. And I have to say that there are a few error pieces just because this institution counted gifts of 0, which sometimes screw up the numbers. That usually means a gift in kind. But what we can see here is here are all these people who gave in July last year or August, all the way up to November 18th last year, but they haven't given this year. So what this means is if they give at the same time every year, they didn't give this time. So these are people to take a look at, to see, maybe reach out to them to see, why they haven't given, or, maybe they just got missed. And we can add a few things to this visualization to make things, a bit more clear and give us more information. So let's add giving from, whoops, that's not the one I want to give. Let's give the gift amount from 2023. And we can see, okay, here are people who gave quite a bit in that year. I can also move a gift date over here and say, I want to, so I'm going to say I only want gifts after, oops, 6/30, 2023. Okay. Okay, and so that, what you saw previously is actually the lifetime giving for these LIBUNTs. This is the giving they made in 2023, 2024. So we can see that, okay, some people here are given 1,000. We can also sort this, and here are the LIBUNTs that gave the most last year, but haven't given yet this year. So if we filtered, for gift date between, after this year, after this period, we know this is last year's giving, since they have not yet given in 2024, 2025. We can also add a few other things. We can say, okay, I only want to see one affinity group, for example. So in this case, affinity group, some of the colleges, and these are fake, by the way, I just added these. So maybe we don't want to look at alumni, so we're going to cut those out. But we do want to see the other affinity groups, so I'm just going to add that to our columns. And now we can see, okay, a lot of these people seem to be from these high affinity people seem to be from hospitality and tourism management. So maybe that's something we can talk with the dean about, putting a letter out to Libunts and say, a special gift, saying, if you haven't given this year, maybe consider a gift. Let's see, go back to the slideshow. So having started to look at some of that information, the next thing we need to do is look at our plans for solicitation over the next few months. So maybe in the past, we have done a direct mail piece on, in January, and followed by an email blast, doing text to give over this period, and then personal follow-ups near the end. So we can set that kind of schedule, but maybe we need to take a look at what has worked in the past and what hasn't, and where we've gotten our gifts from. So going back to, so this is a slide that Marianne actually put together earlier. So we can start looking at things like solicitation method, and which is really good, and it's something we need, but we can add to it by looking at this by the part of the year. So if we go to our end of year giving forecast, I'm going to show you how easy this is to build, because, or if I've already done this. No, I haven't. Oh, yes, no, I haven't. So what I'm going to do here is build this end of year giving forecast by choosing a bar chart, and I'm going to do a horizontal one. And which one should I choose? I'll choose this one, the 100%. And on the x-axis, horizontal, we obviously want to look at gift amount. So right now we're seeing just a bar with 100%. I chose the 100% bar chart. But now what we want to do is look at how those gifts came in. So I put together an appeal description. So that's going to be our y-axis. So right now, what we're looking at here is all of our gifts obviously are 100%. What we want to do, actually, I'm going to change it to this one. That makes a lot more sense. So all of our gifts coming in lifetime, we see that personal solicitation obviously has brought in the most money, direct mail. Unsolicited is quite high, and a lot of that might have been the early years of the institution. So let's go and let's look only at the last 10 years, but not this year. So greater than or equal to 2015 and not 2024. So now what we're seeing is that by far personal solicitation was the highest amount. And by the way, we can make that a percentage by showing the value as going into x-axis, choosing show value as, and looking at percentage of grand total. So we can see that a huge amount here, almost half of all of our gifts in the last 10 years have come through personal solicitation. But what do we want to, we want to probably see what works in the last part of the year. So let's go back in the date hierarchy and choose month. And I'm only going to look at the last 6 months of the fiscal. And surprisingly, most of our gifts are coming in through, the largest part of our gifts are coming in through unsolicited gifts. So what is that telling us? Well, one of the things it's telling us is that people are giving without us having to say anything. And maybe if we actually reached out, we could raise some more money. One of the things that I'm actually going to go back to the client and talk to them about this. One of the things that surprised me was that personal solicitations kind of fell in the last 6 months of the year. The other thing that really struck me is everyone I know is always pushing, oh, we've got to raise money online. Well, they raised 5% of their money online. And email blasts were even lower, about 0.25% of their gifts in the last 6 months of the fiscal came in by email. So this can tell you, and let me see if there's, so unsolicited, that's true. Unsolicited could be a memory of honor. And unfortunately, when I anonymized, I removed that from the fund description. But one thing we can do is we can remove capital gifts. I know I did put that in in here, and that didn't move the needle too much. So instead, I'll also add endowment. There we go. So when we're looking at current gifts for this institution, direct mail raised quite a bit. As Elizabeth said, this could include memorial gifts. And by the way, one thing that you don't see here and you wouldn't see in a Power BI is how important it is to include information like were these gifts memorial gifts. And what you put into the source document is really going to be able to help you when you build a visualization like this. So that's a really good point. And in the future, I'll make sure that I include is memorial gift as one of the fields. So this is now telling us, okay, if I'm the annual fund director and I want to see what's been working for annual fund historically in the last 6 months of the year, I can look at this and see, okay, well, we had direct mail bring in 30% of our gifts and the phone-a-thon bring in another 24%. So over half of our gifts are coming in through direct mail or phone-a-thon. And I also include this generic annual fund appeal when I couldn't, from the data I had, figure out what the appeal is. And fall appeals and spring appeals also fell into the same categories. So we could even, if we like, remove those so we get a better view of our data. So now, after removing those generic appeals that we couldn't, I couldn't determine what they were, direct mail is accounting for 38.72, 30, there's a 68% of our giving in the last 6 months of the year to the annual fund is coming in through either direct mail or phone-a-thon. So we can say to ourselves, this is what's working for annual fund. That isn't to say that won't happen the same way in the future, but historically that's what's worked. Does that mean our online giving is not as good as it could be? Does it also mean that we're just not getting a lot from our annual alumni magazines and publications? People just not giving that way anymore. It's possible, and those are some things we can start researching.
Yeah, and not to butt in, but I'm going to butt in. Another thing it could tell us is that they're focusing on doing a lot of direct mail rather than what's further down the list, and not so much through Giving Tuesday, say, which is much further down the list. So it tells us
Mm-hmm.
where they're already focusing, and if they wanted to beef something up, that gives them opportunity to do so.
Right, and that's it's that's a really good point, Ruthie, because one of the things that I often see working with institutions of pretty much every stripe is, well, we're going to send out an annual mailing because our research says that annual mailings bring in the most money. And it turns out that that's what they concentrate on all year, is that one annual mailing. So it's kind of like, if you don't look for something, you're not going to find it. So this is another way of taking a look. Okay, we spent, say we spent half of our resources on direct mail, but we're only getting 38.72% of our gifts during this time, by direct mail. Maybe we're spending too much time on direct mail. And online, maybe we're only spending like 5% of our resources, but we're getting more than 5% of the return. So this is a way we can calculate ROI. Obviously, I don't have with me the amount that was spent, or amount of time that was exercised on these various appeals. But what we can do is, we have that information. We can compare it with what we were getting in return. I mean, I know, for example, I've worked with annual fund departments, and I actually ran a phone-a-thon for a while. It takes a lot of resources to work on to build the phone-a-thon, and sometimes you're not getting the returns you expected from it. And sometimes you don't know that until you build something like this, and you see, oh gosh, our spring phone-a-thon, just for all the work we're doing, it just is not bringing in the money that we wanted to get, or we're getting more from direct mail, and we didn't realize that. So uh, filtering by gift month and looking at certain parts of the year is a really good way of seeing what appeals are working at certain times of the year. We can also kind of look by changing what's on the x-axis and looking at what kind of fund people like to give to in the beginning, the last 6 months of the year. Compare that with the first 6 months of the year. In this case, it looks like people like to give the scholarships at the end of the fiscal year, and I'm curious now, is that the same for the last 6 months? And it turns out the answer is no. People give to scholarships, more endowment, more on the first 6 months of the fiscal year. So maybe that is maybe that's affected by one giant gift to endowment. You could put in some filters to look only at people who've given 1,000 or less over a certain fiscal year, or less than 10,000 total during the time we're looking at. That's the beauty to me of Power BI, is that you can build all of this information in a very short amount of time, as long as you have the fields. And I love that there's a date hierarchy here that you can pull. Okay, we just want to see giving in, say, August, regardless of year, or filter, by a certain number of years. The other thing I want to show you, I think is kind of neat, that gives you instant analysis, is there's now information. You can use some of this information. You can do a visual calculation, so a running sum instead of just the amount, over year on year. So you can have now, here's the grand total. You can put in Copilot data. If I can find it here. I was looking at this yesterday. You can do insights by Copilot. I don't want to show that. But one of the things you can do is, here we can click on a certain year. This is what I want to show you. We can click on a certain year and say, okay, why did we get so much more money in 2020? Let's explain why we got this money. And so Power BI automatically analyzes this and says, okay, person number 69285, obviously I've made these anonymous, gave a lot of money in 2020. And if we look at, where this increase came from, I think it's this one right here. Yeah, we can see that, this person I think this person actually gave 3.2 million that year, which really explains the increase. We can also see what funds did better that year, what funds did worse by looking at this sum of gift amount. Just seeing if there's any other cool things here. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you 2023 because this really kind of made me laugh, and it's something that you want to take a look at before you show this to anybody. Oh, I don't see it. One of the years I clicked on, it said that a certain fundraiser had not had raised a lot the previous year and not raised a lot this year. So that's the sort of thing you want to look at before you show it to your fundraisers. So if you click, all you have to do is, if you have a line chart, just right click on any of the years, and it will bring up analyze, and it'll explain why your money, your income went up or down. Now this is run by AI, so standard AI disclaimer, but I think it's pretty useful right now. It's I'm not a big fan of AI, but I actually like that. So and it gives you some analysis that really you want to dive into deeper. You want to dive into why the increases happened on just more than a more than a one-time thing. So I have to figure out why I'm not going from page to page here. Remove this visual calculation here. Where's my page view? Oh, lost my page view trying to get that. I've never. So this is typical. It'll be all right on the night. We go to share again. Back to our. So after we've done our analysis, we want to take a look at those opportunities we've identified. And really, these are the three kind of keys that we can start with. Identify, using the visualizations like that. First of all, we identify those lie buns using the table I showed you. The next thing is we want to take a look at who gave for the first time last year. We can do that in another visualization in Power BI by looking at previous year giving is greater than 0, and giving before 2023 is 0. So who are those new donors? Where did they come from? What were their affinity groups? Can we find any characteristics that they share? And if we can, then let's take a look at people who have never given and take a look at those donors who share, those non-donors who share those characteristics. And lastly, one of the things that we have found, I think, with clients that we really think is something to look at moving forward is donors who are making monthly gifts. And a lot of times when we do that, we find out that the people who are doing that are faculty and staff members because they are giving through payroll deductions. So you're looking at someone who's like, oh man, this person gave like 500 gifts a lifetime. We need to go. And then you find it was the person who has the desk next to you because they're giving through monthly donations and they've been there for a long time. So if you can filter those, you can filter those out in Power BI and then take a look at who the non-staff and faculty members are who are giving monthly. What characteristics are those people sharing? What affinity groups do they belong to? And you can also look at things like age or, people who use more technologies and people who are connected to your social media. Are they people who are giving monthly? And would other people who interface a lot with technology and are in that age bracket, are they interested in monthly giving? So the next thing we need to do is kind of plan out the remainder of the year by taking a look at, what appeals we're doing. And we had that, we talked a little bit about this before. This is something that Marianne and I put together some time ago that also includes ROI, and it included I used a program called Microsoft Solver, which unfortunately we don't really have time to go into here, but essentially Microsoft Solver takes what you've raised last year and using ROI, trying to see what you can raise this year. And if you spend a certain cost on each of these prospect pools, what are you going to raise during that year? So I do have a class on Microsoft Solver up at Sopel if you're interested. But basically, even if you're not using Microsoft Solver, one of the things you want to look at is, okay, how much are you spending on these, or do you have budgeted on these future projects? And how much did these projects raise last year, a few years ago? Take a look at those appeals. You can use the actual appeal name to filter in Power BI. And this is why I always tell clients to try and use the same names for everything each year so that you can compare year on year. So, what specific donors are most likely to give during the last few months of the year? What donor types are most likely to? We looked at appeal types. So now let's take a quick look at what donors are most likely to give. So we have our end of year forecast. I'm going to go back to our gift date month is going to be those last 6 months of the year. And instead of putting fund description in the axis, let's take a look at affinity group. So here are most likely donors. And right now we're looking at our non-alumni being the biggest donors. I'm going to cut out as well organizations. So if I want to cut out faculty and staff and non-alumni, we're just looking at alumni after we pulled constituency into the filters. We can see that arts and sciences has donated the most money over the last 6 months of the year. Our business group is next. Computer technology is lagging way behind. And Why is that? Are they just not giving? We can compare this to what they gave throughout the year by simply clicking on select all for a gift date month. It does look like they give a little bit more over the year as a whole. If we just select the last 6 months, like their giving is almost double what it was in the first 6 months. So maybe they are more likely to give during the last 6 months of the fiscal. We can look at this by percentage, but we can also look. We can also show the value by node calculation, so we're seeing the cash amount. And having done that, now we can look at what alumni give to during that year. So I'm going to remove the affinity group, the constituents affinity group, and I'm going to pull in fund description. So this is what alumni like to give to during the last 6 months of the fiscal. I believe we already had this up, but I didn't filter out for alumni. We can, by putting different filters into a visualization like this, we can really pull a lot of information about what works and what doesn't work during certain months of the fiscal. We can also look at what appeals. Oh, we already did appeals. So what appeals work? And I do have to show you. We can also look at how solicitors have done over the. What I did was I just removed all the solicitor information for this client, and I put in fake names: Freddie Fundraiser, Dorothy Development Officer, Sarah Solicitor. So if we remove gifts that didn't have a solicitor, we can see that Freddie Fundraiser did pretty well in the last 6 months. Of the fiscal. Sarah Solicitor not as well. We can compare that by selecting all, and let's do a percentage. So we're doing like for like here. So throughout the whole fiscal year, Sarah Solicitor raised 15.68% of solicited gifts. If we just look at the last 6 months, that percentage falls to 13.87. So she's raising a little bit less over the last 6 months. We can also do the percentages here. We can add a second or we can have a second excuse me. So we can compare by month and then filter and show only Sarah's giving. So we can see that she tends to raise most of her gifts in December. And this could be because of her prospect pool. This could be that she is making calls during December before the holidays. This is something, obviously, looking at this chart and seeing this is probably when she takes her vacation, but she's also raising a lot of money in May. What was working for her in May? And can we replicate that? But also, what was working for her in December? And can we replicate that over the last 6 months of the fiscal? So I realize I'm running out of time, so I want to show you a few other dashboards I've put together, which in the past I've helped for. Have helped me over this type of project. So this is a little more complex Power BI filter. I've used here what's called a funnel, and a funnel it shows us the information that's the greatest at the top, and then goes down to the bottom. And if you scroll up, you can see the percentage of each tier compared with the first tier. So it took me a little while to figure out why this said 0.03, but that just means that this last bin is 0.3% of the top bin. So what we're looking at here is I'm looking only at annual fund, and I'm looking at all people who made a gift during the last 6 months of the last fiscal years. This is 7/20/71, except well, actually no, excuse me. Yeah. Oh, this is all last fiscal year. And they have not given more than $1,000. So I've also excluded people who haven't given yet this fiscal year. So these are essentially LIBUNs who have given less than $1,000. And what we can see is that 335 people have given between $0 and $100. 79 have given between $100 and $200, and so on. I know it's split. It's kind of reversed here. Usually, people will give slightly up. They grow. Fewer people give more, but a lot of people like to give nice round numbers. So 5 people gave essentially $1,000, and these are the 5 people, along probably with this 900 person, that your annual fund people will want to talk to. These are the $900 and $1,000 annual fund donors who are LIBUNs. They have not given this year. They gave at least 900 last year. So these are the people that your annual fund will want to contact. We could also just remove this so we could see that, there's some people here who've given 2,000, 1,500, 10,000 to the annual fund who have not given yet this year. These are the people that your annual fund should be talking to. So what you need to build then is a LIBUN list that filters by annual fund and find out who these people are. This next dashboard is the sum of giving by appeal amount over the last 6 months of the fiscal year. So as we saw before, personal solicitation has been the most successful, which probably expected. We could remove, if we had memorial funds, we could remove that memorial giving, excuse me. But we could also filter this by LIBUNs by saying, okay, our giving this year is going to be 0. Apply that filter, and then our giving for last year is greater than 0. So these are the appeals that worked, that LIBUNs gave to in the past. These are what moved LIBUNs to people who are LIBUNs this year to give in previous years. So personal solicitation is even a higher percentage than it was when we looked at everybody as a whole. But LIBUNs weren't moved as much by things like the alumni magazine or email. So this is a way to tell your gift officers, get on the phone and talk to those LIBUNs, because that's what's working for them. And then I have this page I've put together. This is another LIBUN list. This is alumni only. Which affinity groups do we need to talk to get those last minute gifts? And all we're doing here is this is another bar chart. This is a clustered bar chart as opposed to the stacked 100%. So we're just looking at how many LIBUNs do we have. So the last two slides I want to show really quickly are RFM and velocity. And if you've ever worked with Marianne, you know that she is a big fan of RFM. I'm a big fan of RFM too. I built this in Power BI. There is absolutely no way I can show you how to build RFM in Power BI in 2 minutes. But essentially, if you're interested, all you have to do, and I say all you have to do because thankfully I've done this before, so I knew how to do this. You have Power BI calculate the number of GIFs in DAX, and then do a recency rank using rank EQ. Then you convert that into a score of 5. You also do similar with number of GIFs for frequency and lifetime giving for monetary. If you're really interested in doing this in DAX, I'm happy to send you these calculations because I don't want the work I did a year ago when we put together the class in Power BI to go to waste. But having built the RFM score, what you can now do is build a little chart of people who have not yet given this year, and I'll even add they have given last year. So now what we're seeing is that the recency, we've cut out all the 3s and 1, 2s, and 3s because they have given recently. They gave last year, but now we can look at the people who really gave a lot lifetime, and we can. What I'm using here is the matrix chart, by the way. I've added RFM as the first row and ID as the second. So when we expand our 555 donors, which are the best, they've given most recently, they've given frequently, and they've given the most money lifetime, we can look at what they gave and see, okay, here are the people we should really be contacting. We can sort this by clicking on the lifetime. So we've got someone who's a 555 donor who's given 69,000 lifetime. They haven't given this year. This is the sort of person we need to talk to. This is our top donor bracket. This is someone who's given a lot to us. This is someone we need to talk to. And we can do that with, less frequent or, the people who are monetary 1, 2, and 3s. This might be annual fund prospects, but this gives us a way to sort out our LIBUNs and identify which of them are our best donors, the ones we need to talk to. And lastly, I did a quick velocity score. These are people who are giving more year on year, and I've filtered it by people who have given more, who gave more last year than they gave in the average of the previous 3 years. So we have a 3-year velocity. And once again, this was a difficult thing to put together in Power BI language. So if you're interested, I'm happy to give you the calculation I use because, again, I don't want my work to go to waste. But essentially, these are all the people who gave more in 2023, 2024 than they did the average of the previous 3 years. And this is sorted by how much they gave last year. So this is someone we really want to talk to. They haven't given this year. They've been giving more and more. They gave $15,000 last year. This is someone we really want to talk to. And frankly, all of these people are people we'd like to talk to. Anyone who gave more than 1,000 this year has been giving more year on year and hasn't given this year. So those are my calculations. I know we only have 3 minutes left. Are there any questions? I see that one in chat. Oh, that was a receipt. Okay. Looking to see if anyone You can, if you want to talk, just raise your hand and Gayla will unmute you.
Yeah, I've been putting a lot of stuff in the chat just to help people if they wanted to check out some of our old
Yeah.
water coolers and things like that. So you'll see a bunch of that in there.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, yeah. I have to say, just as a side, one of the great things about Power BI is how fast it is. I mean, these are things that would have taken me days to discover in Excel, and I love Excel. And I mean, part of the thing when I moved here to Nevada was like, oh man, the World Excel Championships are here. You know, I got to go to that. I mean, that tells you how much of an Excel geek I am, and yet I'm using Power BI for all of this, partly because it's fast, but partly also because of the calculations you can put together in it. So that's just my plug for Power BI.
I had no idea there were Excel championships, by the way. I just learned that today, right now.
I've had so many people ask me if I want to go, but you have to qualify for them. So I'm going to have to brush up on like what you have to do. So
Pretty sure you're a shoo-in.
to show you how much of a geek I was, when I heard about them, the first thing that I heard was who the presenters were, and the presenters are Bill Jelen and Lila Gureshi. And most people would be like, "Oh, who are those people?" I was like, "That's Mr. Excel, and that's the woman on YouTube." So,
Excel superstars.
yeah. So, okay. Well, thank you all for coming. Again, if you want to see some of the calculations I put together for RFM and velocity, I'm happy to send them to you. They use a piece of DAX called SumX, which is tricky to learn, and I'm happy to get it figured out for this. But yeah, and if you have any other questions, just let me know. Oh, and I even put a slide together that shows you my information. So and my little IKEA IKEA illustration that I often use.
Yep.
Oh.
And I put your email in
and
the
I didn't
chat
even
for
show
folks
you it
too.
because I didn't have it shared. Well, I'll just do that now. Okay, let's share that. There we go. there's my information and the little IKEA illustration I put together. And the IKEA delivery point is literally, I can actually see it from my apartment. So.
Oh, that's cool.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming. And hope to see you again soon.
Yeah.
All right. Take care.